Hello. I'm going to review how to connect a existing Drawloop document package and use a Nintex workflow as a delivery option for the document that you're going to be delivering. And this is going to be very useful for when you're trying to do something a little bit more advanced than just delivering it to maybe one location, just like a box delivery or doing something like that, because it's going to allow you to maybe have a workflow that can control maybe an approval process or storing maybe in a legacy system that Salesforce necessarily can't reach. So it'll allow a lot more flexibility here. And this is where we're going to get started. But first of all, you're going to want to have an already working Drawloop document package use case. It's always kind of helpful. The next bit here you're going to need is at least a trial or better of Nintex Workflow Cloud, which I have in a tab just to the left over here. So if I scroll down here, I already have one set up, and you're going to see in the delivery options I have with all the different record types. One of them is Start Nintex Workflow, and I've already set this up. And I'm going to show you that in just a moment here. But the first thing I'm going to do before we get into this is I'm going to go into the Workflow Cloud environment. Now, this is one of the workflows that I have set up that's going to be using the specific delivery that I had shown already. Now, the one thing that's important when you're creating a new workflow here is you want to make sure that you have the correct start event settings, or else this obviously won't function. Because what needs to happen is at the end of the document being generated, all the information you're wanting to pass, the document and maybe some variables from Salesforce, need to know which workflow to use. And that's done by, in the starting event, when you're very beginning and you're creating this, you want to make sure you select the connector of Nintex, and then the event you want to use is just a component workflow. From there, you can also create a couple different variables that you're going to want to grab in addition to the document. So for example, in this use case, I'm running this document from an opportunity, and I'm going to want to grab a couple extra pieces from it. Important things like the opportunity ID. That's going to be very important because if I'm ever going to want to use that specific opportunity in the workflow, it'll allow the workflow to isolate which opportunity that I ran this from. So for example, attaching the document back to the opportunity after maybe if I use an e-signature solution. Or if I'm trying to grab specific data from the opportunity, that's going to be helpful too. And in this case, I'm actually grabbing a couple things. I'm grabbing the owner's email of that opportunity. I'm grabbing some primary contact information right off the opportunity, the account name, and then like the opportunity ID, obviously. And then another important piece here is an actual collection, which is going to be actually being utilized to grab the physical output of the document that we're generating. Now, once you've created all these, and you can just let that sit there, the next part is actually just telling the story of the workflow that you're wanting to perform. In this case, what I'm doing is I'm generating the document, passing those variables, and then I'm grabbing the actual document, and then I'm also at the same time going to be updating Salesforce. And pretty much whenever you see Salesforce in the workflow I designed here, it's really just going to be updating Salesforce with some information of what's coming from the workflow and where we're at with the workflow. In this case, if I click open here, you can see where I have a needs approval, and I'm just using that to determine whether I'm going to be going through this particular approval process. Once it passes that Boolean of the opportunity field equaling yes, where it needs approval or not, then it'll go through this process. If I actually tab back over here just to show, if I go into my opportunity, I'll just show you where that is actually happening. So you can see where I have a needs approval process, and you see where it says yes. There's a sign status field I'm also updating constantly throughout the workflow that's going to be updating it once it goes to the signature process of whether it's been signed, whether it's been declined, who's signing it, and so on. And you can see that just being controlled right through here. Now, once you've created your workflow, and I have at the end of this process, I have a story where it's going to go through the approval process. Once it goes through, it's going to go through the signature, and it's going to attach back to Salesforce once it's signed. But how do I tie it directly now to the delivery option? Well, once you've published the workflow, and So let's say that I've done all my edits and I want to save everything. Once I've published it, I'm going to be given some controls. And the important one you're going to be looking for is one called URL. And that'll show up right on the top right here. We have a nice little, you can either copy it manually, we have a button here, you can actually just copy it with it right here. And once I have that, I can actually go back to the document package. And when I create a new new delivery option, the way that's done is just by selecting the Start Nintex workflow. And you'll see when it pops up, it's all empty. Let's call it test for now. And you'll see a URL field here. If I actually just paste that in, that's going to do a couple things. One, it's going to connect to the workflow, but it's also going to pass all those variables I typed earlier that I'm going to want to collect from Salesforce and place them in here. And you can see all the same exact syntax throughout. You even see, whenever you see the field tagger here, that means you can actually use the field tags that you're using in your document to place right here as well. So you can move that data over dynamically from Salesforce. So to show one that's already set up, if I cancel here, and I go down to the approval and Nintex sign, you can see where I've already tagged the document, and then that proposal collection that I have, and just the output files of the document. So this will allow everything to tie together and deliver directly to the workflow. Now, if you have any questions, always just go into the community here like you are right now. And then if you have any additional questions where it goes maybe a little more detailed in your use case, just feel free to reach out to support. All right, thank you very much.